Hey YouTube, I wanted to show the actual tools that I use for the electrical work that I'm doing around my house. I made a couple of videos and I think I may have confused a few of the viewers. So basically I'm just going to show you what I've been using. I'm not an electrician. I've actually had really no experience with electrical work around my house, but have been forced to do all the work that I need done because the cost of hiring an electrician. So here's just everything that I use. The first thing, let me show you what I've used as a guide is this Black & Decker Complete Guide to Home Wiring. It's an older version, but I think any of version will give you what you want in terms of explanation of home wiring, how it's run, what you should look out for. I was very apprehensive about working on my own electrical work at the house until I learned the basic rules. It really eased my mind, and fundamentally the basic rule that you want to follow is any circuit you're going to be working on, the first thing is always to go shut the breaker off at the house that powers that circuit. And this book tells you a lot more than that, but you can see it's fully diagrammed with color photos. Shows you how to wire boxes, how to wire switches. Shows you diagnostics, ceiling lamps, pretty much anything you're going to come in across as a homeowner. This section was extremely helpful for me, which gives you all of the different types of receptacle and switch diagrams typically that you're going to come across in the household, and how to wire them, whether they're in series or parallel, whether you have light switches that are running multiple lights and so forth. But this book has really been my Bible, and it's really been complete and accurate. So I certainly recommend you getting some sort of guide to help you along instead of relying on people to answer your questions, because sometimes they might not give you all or have the time to give you all the information that you need. This book will give you all the information that you need, but following those simple guidelines like shutting off the power, don't ever work on a live circuit, is really what keeps you safe. Anyhow, getting back to the bag, this is an old carpenter's pouch that I've had around, and I've turned it into my electrical pouch. And I encourage you to get a pouch to hold all your tools if you're going to be walking around the house doing work, because it's nothing more of a pain in the ass than having to walk back to the place that you left the tool, and then you're walking around the house looking for something. It's just really a pain and time consuming. Anyhow, multimeter, I've already done a review on this if you want to see it, but these are essential tools. And if you're really wondering, even if you don't have an open project that you're working on, you really should, as a homeowner, make an electrical diagram of what breakers power what areas of the house. And if you want to even go further, like I have every receptacle and every switch outlined as to what breaker controls it. So that's just a master diagram that all of you should have, so if a problem arises, you know which breaker to go shut off immediately, and then you can address it accordingly. Anyhow, I have a multimeter, non-voltage contact tester. All of these I've done a video on that. These are diagnostic tools. This is a Sperry stop shock outlet tester. And the reason I'm showing you this stuff is to show you that I've not used anything more than this, and I've not come across anything I don't have a tool for. Now this is a lot of equipment, I grant you, but it's not that expensive. And most of these things you probably have around the house. This is another tester for outlet, another sort of non-contact voltage tester. You're going to need essential tools like screwdrivers, and a good utility knife is required to cut Romex. And to strip the line of the Romex or any wire, you can use something like this. This is maybe a little lighter duty than you need, but it still will work. Some snips are very helpful in pulling Romex through. If you're not familiar with Romex, that's the wiring that you have at your house that runs from receptacles to switches to overhead lights and so forth. But something like this is good to cut and to use as a jaw clamps to pull through. What else do I have in here? Some needle nose. These are very good. One other thing on these little wire strippers. They make these in a variety of configurations, but if you notice these little holes that they have in there, those are wonderful when you're wiring up these switches, because if you notice on a switch or a receptacle, they have these connecting points that the wire wraps around the screw, and then you screw that down tight on top of the exposed wire. Well, that little loop is created by this little hole. Shove the wire in there and you roll it around, and it creates a perfect little loop. And I found out kind of the hard way, because I didn't read the book fully when I started, and I was doing it with these needle nose. It worked, but I scuffed up the wire quite a bit, and it was unnecessary, because if I would have read the book and known how to use my tools properly, I would have been able to figure that one out pretty quick. Anyhow, some of the other things, some oversized snippers that I use. This will cut the Romex. Some electrical tape, obviously, and then you're going to need an assortment of wire nuts. These are kind of color coded to the size, and they're just a variety of different sizes according to the gauge of wire that you're going to be dealing with. And typically, I think the 12 gauge wire is used on certain 15 or 20 amp, and then 14 gauge wire will be used on the other. But they have a range like 10 to 12 and then 12 to 14 that you can use. You don't want to go light on the wire that you're going to be using, but most of your applications are going to be typical 2 or 3 strand wire, and by that I mean that Romex. I don't have any Romex in front of me, but it says on the sheath what it is. And again, if you go to your manual, it will outline all of this, and you can see, like, this is what I'm talking about by Romex, that sheathed wire. And you can see here what I'm talking about a little clearer. These are the loops that I'm telling you about, how it makes a nice little perfect loop with that circle in the tool. But doing this type of work, which is what I've done, I've installed a lot of these boxes, both metal and plastic. I've pulled Romex through and wired up receptacles and lights, switches. A lot of work that I've done. I mean, I can't calculate what an electrician would have cost me, but I can tell you that with the few $100s that I've spent on my tools and the book, that's probably one day for an electrician to come out, and he wouldn't have been able to do anywhere close to all the work that I've done so far on my home. I must have saved thousands of dollars doing my own work, and all I spent was my time, and then maybe $300 total on all my tools, maybe $350. We'll go $350. But that's cheap compared to what you're going to spend if you have a professional come out and do it. Now, I feel confident the work that I've done, given the direction of this manual, that I've done all the work according to the way it should have been done. Now, I didn't, inspectors, I didn't call an inspector to do the work. And I don't know that you have to, but your jurisdiction will tell you. And if you want to, do it. If you don't, I feel confident that all the work that I did was over and above what was necessary. And everything actually was upgraded to what it was. So I feel happy with the work that I've done. Anyhow, hopefully this was helpful, and I really recommend, like I said, you get yourself outfitted with some tools, and certainly get yourself a guide of some sort to help you along. And if you're like me, you who likes to look at color diagrams and more visually oriented, this has been one of the best that I've seen. Haven't seen any better, to be quite honest with you. So hopefully that'll help you and guide you a little bit on selecting some tools. So take care.